Today's discussions will take us through the pandemic, its impact on industry, collaborations between Indian and French companies, and of course, showcase the investment opportunities in India and in France. Today, you'll have the opportunity to listen to over 20 top-level speakers. Thank you very much to the organizing team, Johan, Priyank, and Purnima. I'd like to end by thanking all of our sponsors, without whom this would not have been possible. Thank you very much to Airbus, our platinum sponsor, GMR Airports Limited, our gold sponsor, and of course, our silver sponsors, Explio Group India, Criticalog, and Safran. I wish you all a very good session, and thank you very much. Over to you, Priyank.
Thank you, Payal. I now welcome the president of IFCCI and founder of Insight, Mr. Sumit Anand, to share the opening remarks. Yes, Sumit,
Priyank?
I can hear you.
Sumit, yes, we can see you and hear.
Okay, thank you so much. I've just put my video off to actually save the bandwidth. That's what I was asking. Thanks, Priyank. A very good afternoon to our attendees in India and bonjour to our friends joining in from France. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the honorable guests, our respected members and distinguished participants who have joined us here today for the 5th consecutive edition of the Indo-French Defense and Aerospace Seminar 2020. Every year, this seminar has gotten better, but as Payal said, this year it's a step change with a great line of speakers, very interesting topics, and of course in partnership with key players. With the outbreak of COVID-19, systems and needs in the world have changed dramatically, and so have the ways of working. As we progressively move towards a virtually connected future, just as we are here today from different parts of the world. The novel coronavirus disease is exerting overwhelming influence on many countries around the world, with the second wave that we now see in Europe and parts of India as well. I hope that everyone here and their families and colleagues are keeping safe and stay healthy. I'd like to also thank our partners and friends at GIFAS, the French Aerospace Industries Association. Vincent, thank you for partnering with us. I remember when we had our first conversation in Lucknow with Emmanuel and Payal, and you expressed a willingness to work with IFCCI. Really appreciate that we're doing this together. The SIDM, the Society of the Indian Defense Manufacturers, our close friends Business France, the French Trade Commission, and of course the Embassy of France in India for their partnership on this event. I'd also like to thank the leadership of the IFCCI Defense and Aerospace Committee, led by IFCCI's Vice President, who is the chairperson of this committee, Emmanuel Darocfai, Vice President and Country Director for Thales, and the Vice Chairpersons, Mr. Ashish Saraf, Head of Region India and South Asia for Airbus Helicopters, Mr. Pierre Dicalis, CEO of Safran India, and Mr. Marc Delet, GM India, Test Measures Feria, for their time and involvement in this event. When Emmanuel took the leadership of this committee a year or so ago, he was very clear on a few things. And I remember talking to him about that. He said the committee should be bigger and better. It should bring together all companies and partners, whether they are large and small and whether they are French and Indian. And it should be active so it makes a real impact for business. This seminar, in my view, is a key milestone in that journey. And therefore, congratulations, félicitations, Emmanuel. And so I must say here to all those who are not members of the committee and are not members of IFCCI, join IFCCI now and benefit from this very strong Indo-French platform. The aerospace and defense industry is a strategically important sector for both countries, India and France. And as we know, there are two parts to this industry: the defense military part, which is spoken about more often in current affairs, and the civilian part, which is in fact much bigger. France is the second largest player globally in the aerospace industry, with over 60 billion euros of revenues. The French industry is globally focused on international markets, as that accounts for about 70% of the French industry. And as I said earlier, the civilian part is in fact bigger at about 75% of the business. And therefore, the French-India partnership in aerospace and defense is key to France, and it's also key to India. The Indian aerospace and defense industry is estimated at 43 billion and has been growing at about 10% a year and is expected to reach $70 billion by 2030. Of this $43 billion, about 16 billion is in the aviation industry, which makes it the 9th largest in the world, and one of the fastest growing markets, with travelers increasing at 20% a year. Well, that was the case, I guess, before COVID. We all know that the industry has taken a bad hit in India and around the world, but the numbers are rising again, at least domestically, and I'm sure we'll hear from our expert panel today on that. Over the past years, as you know, the Indian government has taken multiple policy initiatives to attract foreign investment in the aerospace and defense industry. Under the strategic partnership model for defense manufacturing policy, Indian firms have been allowed to enter into strategic partnerships with non-Indian OEMs in key defense subsectors. The draft defense production policy under consideration now envisions India as one of the world's top 5 defense producers by 2025, with self-reliance in 13 areas, covering an entire range of weapons and systems. France is one of the top investors in India, with over 600 companies that have invested here and have tripled their investments in the last decade. You'll be hearing from some of them today. French companies employ more than 350,000 people in India, and is one of India's top economic partners, estimated at about $11 billion. There are about 115 Indian companies also operating in France. It's small, but it's growing fast as France has become the most attractive economy in Europe last year, ahead of UK and Germany. And especially post-Brexit, it's up to Indian industry to take advantage of that. Friends, the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, CCI France India, IFCCI as we call it, is amongst the most active bilateral chambers in India. It has gone from strength to strength in the last decade, supporting our members, who are French companies investing in and with India, and a growing group of Indian companies investing in France and partnering with French companies for Make in India. 100 of the top 120 listed French groups are now actively invested in India. Most are members of IFCCI, which is why you should be part of IFCCI. They're increasingly successful. In either India is now either a top market or a top priority for their leadership. Across all sectors of the French economy, which is so relevant for India, as you'll hear in a minute. And we have sector committees at IFCCI to support them in each of these, where we bring together our members who are Indian and French together, such as the Aerospace and Defense Committee, obviously, but also the Energy, Utility and Smart Cities Committee, the Mobility and Automotive Committee, the Consumer Goods and Services Committee, the Retail, the Shippings and Logistics Committee, the Healthcare and Nutrition Committee, Banking and Finance, and so on. This chamber gathers close to 650 member companies, high-quality members from across France and India, and we have a team of 30 professionals led by Payal, spread across Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, and Pune. We are part of the official French Chamber of Commerce and Industry abroad network called CCI France International, which has 126 chambers in 95 countries and with 35,000 member companies. So welcome to IFCCI. Welcome to IFCCI's annual Aerospace and Defense Seminar 2020. With that, I will conclude, and I hope you enjoy the seminar and you walk away with a lot of insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. I'm pleased to welcome our next guest, Dr. Udayant Malhotra. He's also popularly known as Toby within the industry, as most of you would already know him as, to share a special address as a member of SIDM.
Thank you. Monsieur Javier Le Goff, Sumit Anand, Ms. Payal Kanwar, members of the industry. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate IFCCI for organizing the 5th Indo-French Defense and Aerospace Seminar. SIDM is delighted to associate with IFCCI and GFAS for this event, and I look forward to the deliberations today, which can set the momentum for our defense and aerospace cooperation post-COVID-19. Earlier this year, at DEF Expo 2020, we hosted the India-France Defense Industry Seminar along with IFCCI and GFAS, which aptly captured the potential of India's defense trade with France in the coming years. His Excellency, Monsieur Emmanuel Lenin, had brought out then that Make in India had become a reality for French industry, and that France and India share a strong partnership where the French defense industry will continue its close association with Indian industry. Despite COVID-19 this year, the year has been very momentous for our Indo-French defense cooperation with the arrival of the Rafale. The Rafale is certainly a very strong testament to our bilateral partnership, and I'm confident that this partnership will continue to expand and grow. In the last few months, we've witnessed several policy initiatives taken by the government, which aim to create a long-term momentum towards the growth of Indian defense industry. DPP 2016, now in its new avatar as the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, further encourages domestic manufacturing collaborations. The liberalization of FDI of up to 74% under automatic route shows the intent of the government to attract investments in defense and aerospace. Presently, the value of our domestic defense production stands close to 12 billion. With proactive support from the government and successful implementation of the Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy 2020, I'm confident that we, Indian industry, will achieve a target of almost 25 billion by 2025. And in this journey towards this 25 billion defense industry, French defense and aerospace companies will have a major role to play in catalyzing Indian industry with your expertise and technological know-how. The Indian industry has already played a major role in servicing domestic as well as global requirements through offsets. From precision parts to electronic systems, the industry has proven itself as a capable supplier over the years, and I'm confident that through partnerships, companies from both sides can explore mutual opportunities for growth. For SIDM, engagements with France hold the highest importance, and we will continue to work closely with all stakeholders to make sure our defense industrial connect is strong and that it remains steady in the future. Lastly, I once again thank IFCCI and GFAS for your support, and I hope all participants of today's seminar walk away with valuable insights on Indo-French defense and aerospace cooperation. Dhanyavad, merci, Jai Hind, viva la France.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malhotra. I'd like to make a quick announcement, just requesting all the participants to keep their windows in the speaker view so that you can see the video of the person who's speaking. And also for all the speakers to keep your cameras on when I announce your name. Thank you. And now, Ambassador of India via video. Can we please have the video played? Thank you for getting the video played. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Xavier Legoff, who is the Deputy Defense Attaché in India and the Armament Attaché in India from the Embassy of France to share a special address.
Hello, so I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for giving me the opportunity to speak about the partnership that is at the heart of our bilateral relationship, the strategic partnership. It's a great pleasure for me, and I am very grateful to the organizers, Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in partnership with GFAS and Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers, for having invited me to make an address in this very important event. I am particularly pleased to see so many Indian companies are participating to this seminar. The bilateral relationship between France and India has indeed been structured around strategic topics. It is in the areas of defense and aerospace that we began to build this relationship of trust immediately after India became independent and sovereign. As early as in 1953, India signed its first contract with Dassault Aviation for around 70 Aragon fighter planes, renamed Tufani by the Indian Air Force, soon followed by Mr. 4, Naval Alizé, Jaguar, Mirage 2000 in the 80s, and finally the Rafale today. Similar cooperation involving production in India was developed in the 60s on light helicopters, on radars, on anti-tank missiles, and other defense and aerospace technologies. In the 60s, our space agencies began to cooperate on launcher and propulsion technology. We are also proud to build state-of-the-art Scorpion submarine under license in Mumbai since 2005. Operational cooperation between our armed forces developed in parallel. For example, for more than 20 years now, our navies have been working and exercising together in the Indian Ocean. We have been able to give coherence to these different types of cooperation in 1998, by placing them in the framework of a strategic partnership and by addressing them every year at a high level in the framework of an institutional dialogue. This strategic partnership has a vision. Most of our cooperation are now framed by joint statements that recognize the converging interests of our two countries and affirm the direction in which we want to go together. This strategic partnership has provided excellent foundation for our bilateral relationship, which is a solid and trusted relationship, and the changing geopolitical context at the international level and in the region and has enhanced the strategic nature of our partnership. This year, 2020, was particularly significant while India received the first set of Rafale aircraft in the midst of the pandemic, and that will endow India with exceptional strategic autonomy and unrivaled operational capabilities. In this delicate context also, we managed to put in place a bubble agreement for a significant number of evacuation flights shared by our national airlines while adapting to health constraints and without breaking the link that united us. We already know that 2021 will also be a special year, with also some opportunities. India is reopening its doors for 1 year. India has restored most visas as part of a graded relaxation in travel restriction. Quarantine rules have been relaxed. With just about 2 months to go for Aero India 2021, the biggest air show in Asia, we already know that France is leading the list among the foreign countries. As of now, 23 French companies have registered for the show already. Indeed, as you all know, the industrial dimension of this strategic partnership in the aeronautical and defense sector is already well developed. As the ambassador said just before, more than 60 French aeronautical companies already have physical offices or facilities in India. There are, of course, the big groups, but also more and more micro, small, and medium enterprises. The French aviation and defense industries have chosen India and will continue to invest in this goal. If our strategic trust is at its highest, it is because we have been able to count on one another at all times. You all know the commitment of France to favor the consolidation of our Indian-French defense cooperation and the fulfilling of the self-reliance India and the Make in India vision, and to fully support the growth of the India industrial and technological base. It is an effort that we will continue to amplify, and France is ready to contribute in this context to the Indian priority of modernization of its forces. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Le Goff. Now we commence to the second part of today's program with the first panel discussion. I would like to welcome the moderator, Mr. Hemant DP, who is the CEO of Asia Pacific Flight Training Academy and was the former Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer at GMR Airports Group. I'm also happy to welcome the panelists, Mr. Alain Béart, who is the Head of Industrial Cooperation and Offset at MBDA, Mr. Antoine Crombez, who is the Deputy CEO at GMR Airports Limited, Mr. Ashish Rajvanshi, President and Head, Adani Defense and Aerospace, Mr. Jean-Noël Rowe, General Manager, Indian Subcontinent at Air France KLM, Mr. Kunal Bajaj, CEO at Motherson Group, and Dr. Christopher Sargunaraj, ex-chairman of DRDO and presently at IIT Madras. The themes of discussion for the first panel are navigating the current crisis of the pandemic and its effect on the industry, and innovation and evolution of the defense and aerospace industry for the future. The virtual floor is yours, Hemant.
Everybody can hear me clearly. Speaking to all of you, and thank you for being part of this very relevant and timely seminar, I must say. All have read about a lot that is going on in the aviation space, as well as the space and defense arena. Now, today we have a fantastic set of panelists, as introduced by Priyank, and I think their insight would be very useful, not only in knowing what's going on, but also how to tackle this unique situation, which none of us were trained in all the trainings that we went through in our entire careers, I'm sure. So to start with, when we look at the current crisis, the pandemic that has hit, it has impacted practically everybody, and more so aviation, because that was the first of the industries which was practically shut down, completely lock, stock and barrel. And this was unprecedented, that even during other crises like 9/11, etc., we never had to ground all aeroplanes 100% all over the world. So, as you know, aviation and aerospace and these industries have a very high fixed cost. It starts anywhere from 95% fixed cost to 65%. The variable cost being managed like fuel and spares and etc. So when you shut down an industry like that, where you continue to spend 60 to 90% of your cost, but you're not earning any revenue, and I mean zero, it's not easy for such industries to survive for such a length of time, come back, bounce back, keep the jobs, keep paying the bills, and then progress. Hence, the input from this expert panel would be very, very useful for all of us and the audience in general. So one of the first things that we're going to tackle here is that, as Priyank said, navigating the current crisis. What I would like to ask all the panel members, first of all, I would request them to speak for a minute or two about what they do, what businesses they are handling and their background, so that we know them better. And after that, I will put these questions across to you as to how we're going to navigate this situation. So let me start with Mr. Alan Beard. If you could just briefly introduce yourself and about your company, please, sir.
Thank you. So I am Alan Beard from MBDA. And first of all, I would like to thank you for welcoming MBDA at this famous Indo-French seminar. Within MBDA, I am in charge of industrial cooperation and offset for all the group, MBDA group in India. As part of the Make in India political initiative, the Indian government has been encouraging international defense companies to localize manufacturing and production activities in India for several years now. And as a matter of fact, MBDA Group has been doing Make in India for about 50 years from now. The story started with the industrial cooperation, which was set up jointly with MBDA and the DPSU Bharat Dynamics Limited for the production of anti-tank missiles. And as of today, BDL has manufactured more than 40,000 anti-tank missiles for the Indian forces. Since this initial industrial cooperation with BDL, MBDA has continuously managed to strengthen its industrial activities in India, either to develop cooperation or to fulfill offset obligation or to reinforce MBDA's supply chain. The result today is impressive indeed. And as examples, I can list BDL again, because actually in the pursuance of the successful partnership around the anti-tank missile, MBDA is currently implementing the setting up of 2 missile final integration lines, one for the Mistral missile and another one for the Azra missile, both in BDL facilities at Hyderabad. MBDA has also integrated in its supply chains numerous of Indian micro, small, and medium enterprise. Among all of them, famous Indian defense medium enterprise such as Sasmos, Axis Cables, Newcom, Alpha Design Technology. But Maybe the key asset of this long list of industrial collaboration with India is a joint venture company between Larsen & Toubro and MBDA. Early 2017, Larsen & Toubro MBDA missile system joint venture is created to step into line with this Make in India policy and to win contracts. From 2018, the newly created joint venture entered industrial partnership with MBDA to integrate missile launcher and to integrate the rear section of the Mika missile in order to fulfill the offset demands of the Rafale weapon package India contract signed in 2016, and also in order to develop the industrial capacity of the joint venture. But for all of these industrial activities with the JV and other partners, things did not turn out quite as expected when the full force of the public health crisis hit us in early March this year. The announcement was made in mid-March. Our team would not be able to travel to India to support our Indian partners' operational activities. Our teams started to look for ways of managing this situation remotely as soon as the lockdown was declared. There was a sense of urgency. We had to act and propose solutions as quickly as possible. Since all our usual processes and methods were called into question, we had to define numerous initiatives that harness the full potential of digital technology. Together with the information management and operation directorates, we examined every aspect of the tools that enable us to collaborate remotely, from networks and collaborative software to cameras, screens, tablets. We then worked with the MBDA production teams in France to develop detailed installation procedure to produce step-by-step video of various activities going on locally: manufacturing, integration, and testing of MBDA product. This very innovative way of proceeding remotely is particularly remarkable regarding the missile launcher integration and Mika missile rear section integration performed by our JV Larsen & Toubro MBDA missile system, where 100% of the digital training were delivered with success. Thanks of all these efforts, the means of industrial production were installed remotely with the help of the JV Indian operators. The training was eventually delivered using internal secure WebEx solution. With their tablets and camera, the Indian JV operators completely integrated a Rafale missile launcher under the watchful eye and with the live assistance of the production and installation teams from the factory of Bourges in France and the industrial offset operation team based in our headquarters in Paris. Our Indian colleagues also spared no effort for this operation, and they are very satisfied. The first missile launcher assembly in India will be delivered in the coming weeks to the customer. As a conclusion, I just want to highlight that all these industrial activities already running in India pave the way of a common successful future, which will both increase the Make in India initiative towards the self-reliance and will place MBDA cutting-edge product available for the Indian forces. Thank you.
Thank you all. Along with your introduction, you also presented your case study. So thank you very much. It is very interesting study. I myself had visited L&T plant here, and most of them they're a large conglomerate, but they were in defense and aerospace, and I met the then head there, and there are a lot of plans. So glad to see that it is progressing, and I'm sure this slight hic that has happened due to the pandemic will be overcome by you. Now, thank you very much. And now, may I request the rest of the panelists to just introduce themselves for about a minute or so, and then we'll get into the question and answers. And Antoine, may I request you to please introduce yourself and tell us something about your business.
Good afternoon, Hemant. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Antoine Crombé, and I'm the Deputy CEO of GMR Airports Limited, newly appointed as GMR Airports is now a joint venture between the GMR Group and ADP, the Paris Airport Company. As you know, GMR Airports is managing the international airports of Delhi and of Hyderabad, and is also building the new airport of Goa and the new airport of Vizag. So that's it for a brief introduction on my side, Hemant, and I'm happy to take any questions further.
Sure. Thank you, Anton. We'll come to the questions in a minute. Now, may I request Ashish, President and CEO of Adani Defense, to introduce himself, please.
Thank you, Hemant. I hope I'm audible. So, good afternoon,
Yes,
gentlemen. My name is Ashish Saraf. I look after the defense and aerospace for Adani Group. I look after the group strategy and the chairman office also for Adani Group. Adani Group is one of the largest private sector energy infrastructure, aviation and defense conglomerate in India.
And airport.
And airports. $15 billion in top line, $45 billion in market cap. We have been working with the French companies over the last 2 decades. The first collaboration was in the maritime area with CMA CGM in late 90s. A couple of years back, we have our equity partner in Total, who is working with us across Adani Gas and Adani Renewables. And recently, in the month of January, we announced a collaboration with Airbus on aircraft services. It's a pleasure to be here and happy to participate in the conversation. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you, Ashish. I've seen your impressive facility. Matter of fact, I was there at the launch of it. I met you briefly, at the facility near the GMR Airport in Hyderabad, where you're making drones. And incidentally, that also is picking up, exponentially in India. Of course, you make defense drones. I don't know if you'll get into the private ones, but yeah, that's a great setup, and glad to have you here. Next, may I request Jean-Noël from Air France. He's the country manager, Indian subcontinent for Air France KLM, to introduce himself, please.
Thank you, Ayman. And I'm Jean-Noël Roux. I'm in charge of Air France KLM groups for Indian subcontinent. Basically, we are one of the 2 oldest airlines in the world, KLM being 101 years old and Air France 87. We are serving India for a long time. We have merged with the airline 11 years ago. We are serving India since a long time. We were planning before COVID to have close from 40 weekly operations between Europe and India. And of course, right now, we had to downscale a bit, but we are quite keen and flying soon very much. Yeah. And I will be happy to speak with you later.
Thank you. Thank you. May I now request Kunal Bajaj, CEO of Motherson Sumi Group, to introduce himself, please.
Thanks, Hemant. Just want to correct that I'm not the CEO of Motherson Group. I wish I was, but I am heading the Aerospace, Defense and Security division for the group. Just a little bit about Motherson. Motherson is one of the world's largest auto ancillary company. revenues of $12.5 billion US. We are based in 41 countries. We have 271 manufacturing facilities and about 150,000 employees. Very long-standing relationship with France. We have made 2 acquisitions in France. Proud to say that we are the largest Indian employer in France. We have about 2,500 people working in the north and the northeast of France. We've invested about 350 million euros recently in France, and we also have a joint venture with Valeo in India to manufacture HVAC systems. Thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to participating in the panel questions.
Thank you, Kunal. Now, may I request Dr. Christopher, the ex-chairman of DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization, and he is now gone back to his alma mater, IIT, give back to society and get the youngsters propped up about this very interesting and necessary field for the country. Dr. Christopher.
Thank you, Hemant. As you rightly said, that I was in DRDO for years, for 30 plus years, and then I was heading the DRDO as the Secretary of Defense R&D. Now I settled down in IIT Madras to teach, or I started from IIT Madras, so I thought I'll go back to the IIT Madras. During my DRDO period, I worked with several companies in the missiles area, submarines, radars, as well as in including aero engine. Naturally, I worked with MBDA, Safran Group, Thales, and so many other companies of France. Looking forward for your questions and have a good discussions with you.
Thank you, Dr. Christopher. Now coming to the meat of it. The topic, as Priyank said, is that navigating the crisis in the pandemic. So first thing, I guess everybody would be interested in knowing is currently, like I mentioned in the beginning, that at the beginning of the pandemic, especially aviation practically shut down to 0 levels. Now post unlock 1, 2, 3, and several we had. I guess we could ask the panel members that where do they see each of their businesses, airlines, airports, aviation, aerospace, etc. Where are they now? At what rate are they at, and how are they growing? And then, when do they expect to reach pre-COVID levels? In what time frame? And as a precursor to that, just as a brief introduction about the Indian aviation industry, we are currently pre-COVID ranked by IATA as the 7th largest aviation market in the world. And for a country which is the 2nd most populated and the 7th largest in terms of land area, which is around 3.3 million square kilometers, we and about among the top 5 GDP producing nations of the world, aviation really is still a very much of a sunrise sector, to put it politely. Less than 10% of Indians use aviation, they fly. Most of the others are on either roads or trains.
Answer everything in a minute, but where we are, I think, as a crisis, started as it hits our entire industry and especially airports, I think the first effort was, apart from, of course, as everyone managing the cash, was to first implement sanitary measures, and that is something that we are, keep doing to make sure that the air travel is the safest and remains the safest mean of travel, and to restore the confidence of travelers in the air travel. And second thing that we have been doing and that we keep doing is to discuss with authorities in order to resume traffic. And I think this discussion is ongoing. And I think what we can see now is that indeed the growth, and especially in the domestic side of it in India, is here. People want to travel, reached before that. But maybe we can discuss later on, the specificities of Indian air traffic and why the potentialities are still here.
True. Thank you, Antoine. And yes, indeed, on 25th of May, when we started resumed flying, 30,000 passengers all over the country, I believe, flew from all airports, all airlines. And as per Minister of Civil Aviation figures last week, that number touched 232,000. So that is a substantial, very encouraging growth. And also one of the reasons I'm told is that like Hyderabad, the railway station, which has about 200 plus trains, are operating a fraction of that, and that too, most of them are going empty. So people are very health conscious and they are flying.
Our expectation is not before 23-24. We expect the traffic to go back to the same 45-50 million packs in Mumbai. And similarly in Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Lucknow, we see a similar situation. What can be done? I think what we are doing, working with our partners, is finding creative ways to keep them afloat and also keep the business running. So how can we extend a line of credit? How can we find ways of giving them some work in other parts of our businesses? Because this is a crisis which is much deeper at the MSME.
Up at Bombay. But having said that, the good news is that other parts of the country have seen a recovery of up to 40-50%, including Hyderabad. I'm told they're touching 50 to 60. Domestic only, of course. International is of course currently is almost nothing other than the Vande Bharat flights and some charters, and that and the air bubbles, and that depends heavily on the destination as well. It's not in control of one country alone. But we hope that the pickup, when it does happen, and as it's happening in most part of the country, our expectation is that we expect to migrate a large chunk of folks from buses and trains onto.
Went down to 30%, and now, right now, we have only 20% of the long-haul operations flying and 50% intra-Europe. And even the last 2 weeks with the confinement in France, we are down to 15%. Then we see the impact of the global health restrictions, border restrictions. If I come back to India, I believe the resilience of the country will be good. I was speaking lastly with the cargo is 2 times or 3 times higher, and that the contribution of the cargo in the average revenue of an aircraft, let's say in India, normally that's something around 15%. Now we are at 50%. And when we fly an aircraft, we have 50% for the cargo, 50% for the passengers. And then it's a huge demand from India. You have the vaccine coming, and then we do believe that the cargo will help the recovery of the airline industry.
Well, that's
our production is down by 40 to 50%. And what's that doing is it's resulting in hundreds of companies facing bankruptcy in the aerospace clusters in North America and in Europe, which is putting thousands of jobs at risk. And this is important because people in an aerospace industry are very important. They need to be trained up on processes, manufacturing processes. However, we are seeing that the primes and the tier ones, the OEMs, they are working very hard along with the government support to really protect the supply chain. So it is pretty tough out there. In terms of recovery, a number of my fellow participants have aircrafts which will pick up much faster because of the quicker rebound of the domestic markets. And then you've got the wide body, which is more international air traffic, which will take a longer time to recover.
True. Thanks, Kunal. Dr. Christopher, if you could enlighten us with your views, with all your experience, travels, we would like to hear what you have to say. Hello. Okay. Sir?
In that way. The other aspect I would like to even cover from the place where I am there now at this point of time, the academic institutions, where the 10,000 odd students used to be there in IIT Madras. Now, not even 100 is there because of the pandemic. We have been asked to send the children off, so we have done that. And we anticipated the classes can be conducted virtual and they will be more at home because they are getting their home food and they should be able to. Unfortunately, the result is entirely different. We find that
among the panel that would like you to do at least 2 trips a quarter, using Air France first class from Delhi airport, to start with.
As I told you that it is not effective, though we are trying to go for Zoom and all, nothing is working as as much as personnel, right?
No, true. I mean, business cannot be done just purely virtually. That's a very well-known and a time-tested fact. I used to be in the sales profession before, and one of the things was, connecting with people. That's very important, especially for us Indians.
We kept aside both the chemical wars as well as the other aspects, but now we are rethinking whether should we have to give a biological war again or not. I mean, these are all the points which going on in the discussions, and it will take its own maturity only at a later stage. There are so many things the pandemic has pressed us to rethink what otherwise kept under cold storage. It's not going to be part of the day at all. That's what I would like to say at this point of time.
All right, thank you. That's interesting. About, remote controlling the aeroplanes. Only you're going to put
destruction, which actually caused $1 billion of loss, was only done through the Israeli and the Turkish drones. And if we take it to the next level, and there are multiple examples, what happened a couple of months back, even the rebels in Yemen were able to take out 25% of the oil production capacity of one of the largest Middle Eastern countries. So I think we are moving into a different era, and India is not far behind, realizing the criticality of how these unmanned aerial systems can be used and the ecosystem. So yeah, over to you, Hemant.
Thank you.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yes, I realize that. Thanks, Ashish, and very interesting perspective on the AI and the drones, remotely controlled vehicles, etc. Quickly on the Kunal, your thoughts on this? You want to add anything to this, since you are also an aerospace and defense industry?
Yeah, we'll see a lot more automation that will take place. And we may see things like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, that will play a greater role to play.
Okay, great. The gentleman from the aviation, Antoine and Jean-Noel, that what innovations do you see coming up in aviation to overcome the new normal, or rather to fit it? Is there anything that the defense and aerospace industry and organization DRDO could do to help us either reduce cost or make it better, safer, faster? Any thoughts on it? Antoine, you could, we got a couple of minutes left, so each of you can take a minute each, please.
Thank you, Hemant. Very briefly, I think indeed this crisis works also as a kind of catalyst to a lot of innovations in the airport industry, and the ones that actually were mentioned previously by Ashish or by Kunal, including artificial intelligence and big data. I think it's one of the major, tools that at GMR airports, also at ADP in Paris, we are actually exploring and trying to experiment, because there is a lot of data actually that can be used to increase the efficiency both airside and in the terminal operations at the airport. So that's one of the major steps going forward, as well as all technologies that can, in the context of sanitary precautions that we are taking. Of course, everything that leads to a contactless journey, everything that leads to reducing the queuing times, the queuing positions. So there is a lot of technologies around these kind of objectives that are being, implemented or at least experimented. GMR Airports has taken the lead on that, especially at Hyderabad Airport. So that's one of the major, I think, acceleration that has been brought up by the COVID crisis.
Thank you, Antoine. And last words by Jean. Your thoughts on innovation and aerospace or.
I believe basically most of the things have been told about AI, about all this technology. I do concur about the biometric support and the contactless journey, and then for those used to the multi-stem journey in Indian passport, it can only be big improvement. Yeah. We do believe, on top of that, that the transition to the ecological world is important for the airline. And then we are facing some consumer associations. We have to reduce the carbon footprint, the greenhouse, the noise pollution around the airport, then bring in new airport, and all what is around being more sustainable will be key for the airline, because it's a demand from a customer, it's a demand from the government, and then we are working on sustainable fuel. Then it's really one of the major elements of differentiation for the airline of tomorrow.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was a really revealing session. They say you learn every day, and I learned a lot today. And thank you so much for your inputs. And Priyank, over to you. Thanks for the opportunity and the platform to you and Payal as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemant. Thank you, everyone, for the perceptive and insightful discussion. We'll now move on to the second panel discussion on the scope, challenges, and opportunities that India presents, and the current state and future of collaborations between Indo-French SMEs and OEMs. I'm delighted to welcome the moderator for this panel, Mr. Venkateramana Mantha, who's the CEO of Explio Technologies in India, and the panelists, Mr. Pierre De Kelly, who's the CEO at Saffron India, Mr. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, who's the President and CEO of Bharat Forge, Mr. Stefan, who's the Indian Unit's Global Manager at Axon Cables, and Dr. Udayant Malhotra, once again, CEO of Dynamatic Technologies. Over to you, Mr. Mantha.
Thank you, Priyank. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us on this panel on this topic, which is obviously very, very interesting in today's scenario. The scope, challenges, and opportunities that India presents to itself in the aerospace and defense industry. And also, we have a large number of MSMEs, and what's the current state and future collaborations which are happening between India and France. So we have a distinguished panelist in this discussion. The way I wish to conduct this session is, since about a 45-minute session, so 5 of us, what we'll do is I'll give my perspective about both these topics, and then thereafter go around the table, virtual table, and ask each of these gentlemen on the panel about what do they think on these two topics, which we have mentioned before. So you may be wondering, who's the gentleman, Mantha, talking about A&D industry, Explio Group, etc. So you need to know Explio Group. In fact, we have rechristened our name in February last year. We used to be called as a system in Paris, very well known around France, a French company, started about 50 plus years back. And we work a lot with Airbus in all commercial airplanes, defense and space, helicopters, with Thales, Saffron, you name any of the A&D French companies, we have a footprint with them. Thereafter, of course, as I said, because of some shareholding pattern change, etc., we had to be called as Explio Group. And so we're not at all new to aerospace and defense. That's a point I wanted to make. We have something close to about 4,500 plus engineers working on aerospace and defense industry. And we do something around $500 million of our portfolio only in aerospace and defense. And we work in multiple countries, working with so many OEMs and tier ones in A&D industry. And about myself, I'm actually an aviator. I'm a flight test engineer with the Air Force for about 18 years in my past career. And then, of course, in the last about 10, 15 years, I'm into the corporate, I worked with a couple of companies, and now from past 5 years, working with a system come Explio Group. I head the India operations, and we have a couple of other India entities put together. We more than 2,500 plus people, and we work out of Bangalore, Pune, and Chennai. So let's go to the topic of today's discussion. So obviously, many people talked about the way actually India was galloping away in the aerospace segment, COVID has applied definitely some brakes. And it's a matter of time. We will recover. We are started to recover. In fact, you see many airports today are absolutely chock-a-block full. So many people are avoiding trains, as I said, going into the airplanes, so which is a good sign. So, and also, if you see that from some statistics perspective, we should be having over 38,000 aircraft expected to be produced globally in the next 20 years, and out of which, obviously, many aircraft sub-assemblies will be built. You'll see that when we talk with people like Toby, who are contributing for Airbus industry significantly. Now, from a French perspective, because this is a IFCCI panel discussion, I wanted to give more flavor towards our French industry working in India. We have more than about 60 French companies and about many more JVs, and close to 20 billion USD, US dollars turnover actually happens in India through the FDI route, only working with French companies, which is quite significant. Some statistics, 2025, we will be about 500 million passengers. Someone mentioned that. And our defense industry itself, Air Force itself, will have about $150 billion of acquisitions of aircraft, missiles, weapon systems, etc. And our A&D market is expected to be around 70 billion by 2030. So why all these numbers is obviously there's a phenomenal amount of opportunity for all the players who are working on the aerospace and the defense industry. And you see that the number of JVs which have been formed in the last about 5 to 10 years is also significantly high. In terms of Indo-French collaboration, for some of you people, you may be aware, our relationship with France is more than about 50, 60 years old, as much as of an independent India. In fact, right from 1953 onwards, Indian Air Force had aircrafts like the Tufani, followed by Mystère, Alouette, that is the Chetak and Cheetah helicopters. And then we had Mirage 2000 in the 80s, which I have flown, and a lot of integration work, and I'm quite a big fan of that aircraft. And obviously, recently, the induction of Rafale, the state-of-the-art fighter aircraft, 36 of them, or 8 or 9 are already flying in Ambala. And last but not the least, the P-75 Scorpion submarines, 6 of them which have been built in Mazagon docks. And I think subsequently, there's a big order of P-75 India, which is going to come in, where obviously the DCN group is going to contribute towards the development of that submarine. So you can see that. So that's what people call France is going to be the new Russia for India. Like back in 60s and 70s, I think any defense equipment, we used to bank only on Russia. But I think in the last about decade plus, I think significantly the momentum has shifted towards France. I think we expect more Rafales, or the transfer of technology. Maybe some Rafales will be built in India, and many other programs, including, the Falcon 2000 is getting their final assembly line being built or being set up at Nagpur, and that's going to roll out some of the business jet aircrafts of Dassault Aviation. So in terms of opportunities for OEMs and MSMEs, in addition to what I mentioned, large deals like Airbus CASA 295 or military transport aircraft deal is likely to be signed. And if it goes through, Airbus is going to build those aeroplanes probably in Hyderabad, along with Tatas. And then some more contracts on the Airbus 320 NEOs on the top of what Indigo already did would be coming up, I think, in next about 10 to 12 months. We are about 8,640 MSMEs currently working in A&D sector, a significant number of them also working with French companies. And also, as per the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, the new term which they have coined for the DPP, a lot of freedom was given for MSMEs to form JVs with foreign OEMs. FDI investment up to 74% is permitted, which is known to us. The important aspect is more than 11.2 billion US dollars offsets are yet to be discharged, and they need to be done by 2024. And out of the 11.2, some amount has been discharged, but still we have 9 billion plus US dollars to go in the next 4 years. So you can imagine the amount of work we can do in the A&D segment, working with many OEMs, including France, of course, some in US as well. Then in terms of the multiple JVs which have been formed in the recent past, you can see that the SNECMA, HAL, some, Alan talked about L&T Thales, L&T NBDA in Coimbatore, L&T Thales, the old JV in Chennai. We also have several other units coming up where Safran is opening up a wiring harness unit in Hyderabad. They also planning to build engine blades or LEAP 1A engines, some of the parts to be built in Hyderabad. Thales is rapidly expanding its engineering center in Bangalore, and also working with several tier ones to build a lot of test equipment and test benches. And similarly, Latiquire has set up a wiring harness plant supporting Dassault and Thales at Belgaum, and Airbus India. Airbus India is significantly increasing its presence. I think close to more than about 1,000 plus engineers work in Bangalore. In fact, we work in the same building where Airbus India works. So you can see the amount of JVs which have been built with some of the French OEMs. And as I said, what are the opportunities for various offsets? Rafale is obviously the leader in the pack. And then we have a Mirage aircraft upgrade. We also have some P-8I Poseidon, of course, that's for Boeing. And similarly, we also have a lot of, as I said, opportunity with the P-75I program. I think it's a massive program. It's going to go into multiple billions of dollars of opportunity for Indian players to be working on that program. Similarly, Airbus is also working with Mahindra Defense and Space in some of the Airbus helicopters, like Panther helicopters. That deal goes through, I think, the significant amount of work coming into India. And similarly, lot many Indian suppliers are working on aerostructures, materials, and cabins for several Airbus platforms. This all, of course, coming in from Airbus. And I talked about the aviation on the Rafale as well as on the Falcon 2000 programs. It's a massive facility which is being built in Mihar, Nagpur. We did contribute, and you can see that adjacent to the runway, the FAL of Falcon 2000 is being constructed. So many opportunities in the pipeline. So this is some of my perspective. Obviously, I'll keep sharing my thoughts along with this elite panel who are there this afternoon. But I just wanted to start with the CEO of Safran India, Pierre Dekeli. Pierre, from Safran's standpoint, what do you think? We already did mention about some of the significant investments you're making, but from your perspective, what are the big opportunities you see working with the Indian A&D segment of business, and of course associated with some challenges as well? Do you want to throw some light on in that direction, Priya? Priya, can you hear me? Hello.
Priya, your audio is not coming through.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes, we can, Priya.
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good.
I think you're signed into two devices, Priya. Could you log out of one?
Yeah, well, actually, my problem is network problem. So I'll log out of one. Can you? Hello?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Can you still hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so it was just, well, first, thank you, Monta, for introducing this topic. Sorry for this network problem. I will start, talking about the opportunities. I may just start with a brief outlook of what Safran has been doing in India so far. Actually, we have been a long-standing partner of India. We started in the 70s, especially with a program based on space activity where we did transfer the technology of the VCAS rocket engine. We are quite proud to say that this has been a successful program, and actually this VCAS engine has really been fully transferred here in India, and all the major rockets are now flying with this engine being manufactured in India. Since that time, the cooperation has developed into defense domain, all the defense domain like air, land, and sea, as well as in the civil activity. We have, quite a diversified cooperation taking place from the aircraft engines, civil, military, helicopter engines, as well as most of the onboard equipment that you could find on a plane, like landing gears, electronic systems, and so on and so on. That activity, we do it either through direct sales, or we do it through partnership with Indian companies, big group or MSMEs. And I'll come later about the MSMEs, which for us are also a very important partnership. Concerning civil aviation, Safran, we are now supporting the operation of most of the Indian airlines, basically through the JV we have with GE on CFM, with CFM 56, and now the new LEAP engine, which has been inducted in India since 2017, basically first with Air India, then Vistara, and now with AirAsia and also Indigo. So this is for the past. New opportunities. I think India, for us, really represents a significant, really significant market and significant opportunities. As somebody has told earlier, civil aviation market is excellently big and is the fastest growing market in the world, really. The case pre-COVID, of course, COVID situation has a little bit reshuffled the scheme, but we can see that nowadays India is recovering very quickly compared to other countries from this COVID situation. I think more than 70% of the flights are taking place with a load factor which is close to 60-70%. And everybody accepts and sees this will be improving quickly in the future. And I think Minister of Civil Aviation has predicted that by early 2021, the traffic will come back, at least the domestic traffic will come back to where it was just pre-COVID situation. Well, this activity in civil aviation also leads to a very important MRO need. This MRO was not really addressed up to now in India, and India did not develop enough of the MRO capability to address all those needs. Since March, we can say that the government has significantly addressed that situation, and in on March 14th, the GST Council has really issued a new law about the GST on MRO, which really will help developing the MRO activity and making this MRO activity competitive on the worldwide side. Definitely, this will be a key path to improve and to go and work on setting up a complete ecosystem in India, because I think an ecosystem means design, development, production, but also support and MRO. Let's come a little bit on the defense activity. Sure, India represents a significant market. Everybody hears, read in the press that many new squadrons have to be inducted, leading to huge new aircraft requirements. And that will also drive the scene for an MRO need for military aviation. So basically, as you can see, for us, as an engine manufacturer and equipment manufacturer, India is a significant market. Beside this, India is also an opportunity for the OEM, because India really offers a lot of opportunity to access to skilled human resources. And as you said rightly, Manta, India is offering a huge number of MSMEs, of companies, which have experience in this field of activity. So I do consider that really, for us, India represents an opportunity not only in terms of market, but also accessing to the skills and to the capability of production. On the other side, I would also say that OEM represent an opportunity for India, because when OEMs plan to invest in India, then this will mean creating new jobs, bringing additional foreign currency in India, and also getting access to export markets. So I think this also is an opportunity that the OEM are bringing to India.
Great. So Pierre, yeah, absolutely. I think this Indian aerospace ecosystem better than any one of us, because obviously you, as I said, you've been working with the Indian industry for such a long time. Now, let me ask you, with this new Prime Minister of India's campaign of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which essentially translates into self-dependent India. So obviously, we are more focused in building everything in India, as a make in India. So how does that go and fit into your overall strategy, where obviously you want to bring in more and more equipment of, say, Safran, in terms of engines, in terms of aircraft interiors, like you acquired Zodiac recently, so you can build a lot of cabin interiors in this part of the world. So how does that fit into your overall strategy, Pierre?
Well, Manta, you're right. I mean, Make in India, I do consider this is now a nationwide program. It is, and I do consider that this is a real opportunity for the OEMs to really further expand the cooperation in India and set up and increase the footprint in India. But at the same time, this is a real challenge for us as well. But let's come back on how this has come into the environment. I mean, a few years ago, let's say 10 to 15 years ago, all the programs, including military programs, were free of any offset on any Make in India requirements. Then, let's say between 10 to 5 years ago, we were talking about offsets. And at that time, even though when we were submitting offsets, we're looking quite a constraint, but at the end of the day, I think offsets are turning as an opportunity as well for us to go and meet and partner with Indian company and develop our capabilities together with the Indian industry. And I do consider Make in India is one step further to the offsets, and really this will be something which will allow us to even further to the offset, develop our footprint here in India. This Make in India is intended to help India in building its own system and also access to sovereignty. But it will be a challenge, and I see four major reasons for that being a challenge. First, developing Make in India means that we, as OEM, we have to identify the Indian partners. And we have to identify the Indian partners which are capable of sustaining what we want to transfer to them. And there are so many Indian partners. So for us, selecting the right partner is going to be quite a lot of work and quite a big challenge. Secondly, we have to consider also new ways of working. I mean, when we were just selling and fly carrying, I mean, the aircraft, the engines, we did manufacture as per our concepts. Now we have to be flexible so as to bring our processes in India and maybe adapt Indian processes as well as our processes so that at the end of the day, we turn out on having something which is suitable for the Indian industry and for the Indian market, while sustaining all the security requirements. And finally, Make in India means probably transfer of technology. And transfer of technology means also some related costs. So we have to find a way to do this and go to this Make in India while still being cost competitive. So we have a dual challenge. We need to find the companies which we will be working with while keeping our offer competitive. At the end of the day, the customer doesn't want to pay more. If we're talking about Make in India, Make in India is really intended to be autonomous here in India. So we are working on doing this and making this a win-win situation. And in certain extent, I must say that the central government as well as the states government are supporting us. They are providing incentive when we are investing. There is this DPP 2020, which is helping also supporting our activities, partnership with MSMEs. Although for sure we would like to move a little bit further on the DPP to make it even more helpful for us. But I can see that this is, as I told you initially, a nationwide program. And I think also the government is taking the measures to help us going this way.
Yep, great, Pierre. I think you're already thinking in the direction how to align your manufacturing processes and your design philosophies with the Indian ecosystem, so that you have a product which is meeting the end requirement. So, in fact, your Shakti engines, which your Safran is already working with HAL in building Shakti engines, is a classic example where a lot of your technology is being brought in building that engine, which is actually a Safran engine. Before I let you go, finally, I want to ask you, in addition to your existing plants of Hyderabad, what I mentioned about harnesses and LEAP-1 engine components, what is your major other initiatives which you think may come into India as part of your Safran's ambition to increase the footprint into India?
Well, Manta, in addition to the facilities we're having in Hyderabad, I would also mention the JV we have with HAL in Bangalore, which is doing all the piping of all the CFM56 and the piping of the engines. And I do also consider that this JV is a real success. And we started that JV, I think, like quite 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And really, up to now, it's really something which is working very well. So that means that we do consider, working here in India through many different ways. Hyderabad, this is 100% FDI, so we have set up Safran's facilities. Bangalore, we have worked on setting up JVs to work and manufacture here in India. And beside this, we're also working on develop part or a complete supply chain here, which means going and meeting big groups, going and meeting MSMEs and working and using their skills so as to develop here our Indian supply chain. And I must say MSMEs are a very important part of this, because usually MSMEs, they do concentrate on a few specific technologies. And at the end of the day, they do also, really control this and bring some real value added to the group, to the final product, because of their ability to control those technologies. And in addition, DPP 2020 is supporting the development of MSMEs, because we're getting some multiplier in addition to the work we're giving to them, to have and get some offset credits. Although those multiplier, we would like them to be a little bit higher, but this is one way also to promote the development of MSMEs.
Merci beaucoup, Pierre. It was great, share a lot of insights about your plans to increase the footprint of Saffron Group in India, not only in engines, but Saffron as a group. You operate in multiple other disciplines apart from engines. And let me quickly turn to now our next panelist, Toby, a good friend, known to me for several years. Toby, everybody rather aware that you work a lot with Airbus on the flat rack beams for several years now. In fact, recently you moved even into producing flat rack beams for Airbus 330, the wide body also. So what is your experience working with the French industry, Airbus, and you also work a little bit with Dassault Aviation, which I'm aware. So can you please share some thoughts of your comfort level of working with the French industry?
Thank you, Manta. Actually, working with French industry is an exceptionally good experience for all of us. It is corporatized industry, but with a lot of soul. And in India, our industries also are corporatized, but there's a strong entrepreneurial element to Indian industry. And unlike the very the big corporation, which is just amorphous, French companies tend to have that human element, which helps create relationships. So you have technology, you have corporatization, and you have passion in France, which appeals a lot and has appealed a lot to entrepreneurs like myself. I just want to pick up on something you said earlier, Manta. France has been an extraordinary strategic partner for India for the last 70 years. But you asked this simple question: what will it take for France to become the Russia, the 800-pound gorilla in Indian defense over the last 3 decades? We've had a lot of experience, because companies like HAL, which have largely monopolized the aviation industry in India, have been partnering with the Russian defense manufacturers. And also in recent years, we've been trying to develop and set up our own indigenous fighter jets. So if you look at that, we've actually partnered with HAL right for the last 3 decades. And the simple elements where the Russians really came all in from raw material phase, all the value added upwards, from detailed parts, processes, industrialization, manufacturing, engineering. They did a complete transfer of technology, whether it's the engines that are built at Koraput, whether it's the fighter jets that are built in Nasik, and then people like us who pretty much built 1/6 of the airframe of the Sukhoi and are today building the largest segment of the Indian fighter jet, the Tejas. What is interesting and important is that after that, for the last decade and a half, while these programs were set, a company like ours went out across the world to try and expand ourselves, because there wasn't enough demand in India with the programs that were there. And 2 of the biggest partners we found, 2 were American and 2 were French. And to talk about Airbus, exactly the question you made, every A318, 319, 320, 321, and 330, which is about 95% of all Airbus aircraft, we make the flight critical flap trap beam assemblies. And what is also more important, I think this is not strictly Make in India, because Make in India is driving it as a demand. as a marketplace, but because, as Pierre said earlier, there's a discovery of value. You have extraordinary suppliers. We have a whole ecosystem of supply chain around us with processes, with special processes, with details. We have a deep industrialization ourselves and a lot of engineering capability. So what you see on the tables in front of you behind me, it's the traditional flap track beam. It has been built for the last 25, 30 years for every 320. We're the sole supplier in the world. We have redesigned this along with Airbus, the next generation, which we start deliveries in just few months. We take 200 part numbers and shrink it down to less than 20 per beam. So you get a far more industrialized, far more repeatable product. And so you have this beautiful artisanality and manpower that is low cost in the world with high talent and skill at a time when in the West, a lot of youngsters don't want to get into beating stuff with their hands or making stuff with their hands. And we've also industrialized it in terms of engineers. You've got the best talent in the world. We've got 1,000 1 million software engineers in Bangalore, where I'm sitting right now. And people like us have a fraction of that. And we have world-class talent that helps redesign this stuff. And then you look at the competitors, America. How is America looking at it? They also are looking at globalization and getting single source production across the world. This is something interesting. On the Rafale, we actually partnered with Manta's company, Explio, where all the engineering work and manufacturing work has been done jointly between these two companies. And, you know, for the future build of Rafales, Falcons, a lot of the very specific tooling and test tooling is all actually engineered and built in India. So it's not just manufacturing of a product, but deep engineering. I'd just like to end with a small case study, which is a Western case study. It's a Bell 407 cabin. The entire cabin is made by us, but it's interesting because these are produced in the French-speaking part of North America, in Montreal. And this is a phenomenal aircraft, 100 sold a year. We are sole suppliers of the entire cabin. Again, to understand what can be the benefit of for a French company, we took all this engineering, we took this data, we digitized the whole aircraft completely at Dynamatic, and then we industrialized the aircraft. And the whole beauty of it is going forward, there are 1,600 detail parts that we make that get assembled into this cabin. As we evolve this over the next 4 or 5 years, it'll come down to less than 400 parts. So these are the value accretive opportunities for French and Indian industry to work together. Of course, companies like ourselves are very ambitious. We want to invest, we want to grow, and we want to partner French industry. I've had the best personal experience, and everyone at our facility and in our supply chain actually really enjoys working with the French companies we partner. Thank you.
Yep, Toby, good. Thanks for that. So let's make it a little bit more a generic question. You're part of the SIDM. You understand this complete MSME fraternity so well. Apart from, you actually have grown quite big. DTL is now really become in the same league as like Mahindra's, Tata's, and Reliance's. How do you expect these MSMEs to survive in the next 10 years with all this COVID situation, with a number of aircraft fabrications coming down? What do you think the challenges this MSME industry is going to face, and how they need to, what steps they need to take to keep themselves afloat in this challenging environment, especially in the A&D space? You want to throw some reflections on?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, if you look at it, one is, I think Pierre also talked about the revival of the Indian commercial jetliner and aviation market, and that will revive over the next, say, 12, 18, 20 months. So if you look at it over 10 years, I think we have a very safe and good industry. The question is the short term, the next few months, the next 6 months, and maybe the next 12 months. What we've focused on, and we have about 200 MSMEs that are part of our ecosystem, very, very plugged into us. And for us, it's extremely important to keep these people warm and alive
And what we've done is we've worked extremely hard to get and pivot and get very quickly defense acceleration. So while we've seen a reduction in volume in commercial aviation, we've seen almost a corresponding increase in our defense production. So at our company level, we are operating at 90% of our pre-COVID aerospace volumes. But for our supply chain, they're all operating at 100%. So that 10% kind of reduction, we have ensured that we've kept these guys alive, because we can stay alive. But if we have pressure on our suppliers, every critical cog can go out of business. And by the way, these suppliers are also suppliers to a lot of other industry, although they started with us, but now they're part of that foundational Indian aerospace industry. And I think we are all working together, and with our customers, with ourselves, with our suppliers, with our peers. I think this defense and commercial is quite a counter-cyclical thing that we all need to look at. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for your insights, Toby. Very much appreciated. As I said, you're an industry expert. You know it all the very best. So let's move on to Stefan from Axon Cables. Axon Cables, yeah, I think he'll talk about the company for himself, a bit of introduction. So Stefan, if I may ask you, we know that you have been in India for several years now. You have established a electric wiring harness plant in Devanahalli Aerospace Park in Bangalore. What do you see significant amount of opportunities for you in the A&D industry? I know you're only supporting a bunch of OEM, but moving forward, do you see that there's a big opportunity for wiring harnesses and other critical systems that you manufacture in India?
Good afternoon. Maybe first to give a brief outlook of Axon. We are on business. Axon is on business since more than 50 years, actually. It's a French family. It's a medium-sized company in the group, in the world, about 2,500 people. And we came in India and we created Axon India in 2009, so a little over 10 years now. What is doing Axon, for those who don't know us too much, we are doing cable assemblies, we're doing our own cables, we're doing our own connectors. We work a lot with our customer, who are OEM, and a lot with co-engineering. That means we are developing those cable assemblies to be fully adapted to their system. So we are working in them in parallel of the time they develop the system to bring the optimum technical solution. So we are really focusing on technology and quality. And coming in India in 2009 was really to support, even if we were not talking too much about that at that time, the Make in India. So to support the Indian industry. Quickly, we created a second facility, a GV, in 2010. The Indian offset was mentioned at that time, and progressively it was also important to be playing in this role of IOP, like several of the European OEM were asking Axon for that, actually. We have invested in India for long term. We have created our own factory. In 2019, we have opened a new factory, as you mentioned, in Bangalore Aerospace Park. This is for two reasons. This is to be in India for long term. This is to bring technology in India. All the previous presentation, you were highlighting on this defense and aerospace market on the technology. And India is looking on the Make in India. India is also looking for Make for the World. It was a motto also at recent Def Expo. And going in this direction, it's important to follow the sector with local support, but also with technology and high quality. having Axon India with 100% FDI, it's allow us to support this large market, which is defense aerospace, and we talk a lot this afternoon on defense and aeronautic, but space is also a very large sector. Axon is very well implanted in this sector. For example, in our new factory, we have a dedicated clean room to manufacture assemblies for the space market. So this is also important point for us. What India is presenting to us, it's a large market. Everybody mentioned it also. India is also for us a country of talent, is a country of engineers. So it was also the possibility to bring technology, to have easy communication, because it's a country where English is a language. And then even if sometimes it's not the impression for some of the people in France, it's a country where you have a lot of well-set regulation in place. Maybe it takes time for the execution, but many times in business, it's also to be patient. But the mix of technology, easy communication, and well-set regulation is very good advantage and very good opportunity for us that we see in the long term. Part of what we want to do in India, even if Axon is traditionally quite vertically integrated, there are many components we do by ourselves. We need also a strong supply chain, and as still small in India, we need this supply chain, and we need to develop this supply chain. And we see more and more of company developing technology that we need in India. It can be precision machining, it can be special plating, it can be special style of connector. So it's also a good point for us as well on specific test equipment, for example.
Great. Yeah. So quickly, let me just ask, you're very famous in wiring harnesses, cables, systems, as well as in avionics. But do you have any plans to diversify yourself into, say, some aerostructures or some other, say, engine components, or even for that matter, apart from aerospace, you want to move into, say, rail or automotive? What are your diversification plans for, or your expansion plans in India?
So it's clear that the requirement is there for cable assemblies, special cable assemblies, but people are also expecting sometimes more than cable assemblies, that sometimes we call mini systems. This is the same tendency in Europe. When we talk of our customer, OEM customers, they are system makers. People as Safran and others presenting before, as a system maker, they may be interested to have a larger piece of equipment. So we have also integrated, and that's the reason we need to develop this supply chain in India. It can be cable assembly already installed in mechanical parts. It can be some cabinets with electronics, wired cabinets. It can be drawer. It can be some even part of test bench. This already started in India. There is some application for airport application where we design and bring some solution for cabinet. There is some deliveries to some OEM in Europe on the offset. There is some project, like if I take an optronic system in India with company like Bell, where we develop not only the cable assembly, but it's fully integrated in capsule, which is part of their system.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that's an excellent overview about Axon as a company and your diversification plans. And I know you're significantly contributing for many of the OEMs like Dassault, Thales, etc. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, we'll keep about 7-8 minutes that we'll skim from the third panel, and we'll extend it a bit. Thank you.
No problem. I understand. So, Mr. Bhatia, obviously, Bharat Forge is a great company. You are almost a pioneer in forgings in India, part of Kalyani Group. Can you please explain, or rather share your thoughts, with the abundant manpower available, technology available, so much of engineering bandwidth, etc., How do you think our manufacturing industry can contribute significantly in a larger scale in the aerospace, defense, and space segment of business, Mr. Bhatia? You want to share some thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Mantha. For once, I thought you have probably forgotten me because it has been going on for a long time and didn't hear that. But it's perfectly all right. Coming back to the point which you are asking, actually, I did hear something called Make in India for the World is one of the mottos which we are looking at. Bharat Forge's tagline for many years has been making in India for the world. In fact, 70% of our production is exported, mostly to Europe and to United States of America, and almost to all the developed countries.
You got mute, Mr. Bhatia. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Mantha. I think Mr. Bhatia's internet connection is...
I was wondering, is it my problem or, okay, then Mr. Bhatia only, then we are good. Okay. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. I could see that he suddenly went silent.
Yes. I'll try to reach his office on the side.
Yes, please. Anyways, by the time Mr. Bhatia is back, I think I just want to fill in for Mr. Bhatia because we don't want to keep audience silent. So what I feel is some of the challenges faced by SMEs, because that's one of the important aspects of this today's discussion. I think in terms of their access to the equity capital, because obviously, as I said, they don't have deep pockets. They wanted a quick cash turnover. They can't be waiting for all these delays in payment. That's what is actually affecting them. And also in delays in sanction of some of the governmental procedures in India, or the bank loans, etc., is something from a financial standpoint. There's one issue which is plaguing them. And also in terms of their bandwidth to the foreign market, they're getting stuck dealing with only, say, Indian companies, but their exposure to many of the OEMs is not very high, as I said, because all the bellwether and behemoth companies are obviously clinching the big deals, and they're in turn making them as tier twos. That's another challenge they face. And as I said, in terms of the low margin on their sales, because obviously they cannot be very aggressive in their pricing structure, etc. So over a period of time, we feel that some of them are actually either they're merging with a bigger company or they're folding up. These are some of the challenges what industry is documenting. And also in terms of the human resources, the shortage of the sector-specific trained employees. Not many players work with an established company. So when you talk about MSMEs, they don't know about the stability of their career progression, etc. So they do suffer from lack of competent bandwidth in terms of the engineering skill or technical skill to manufacture some of these products. And in terms of the market also, obviously now imagine a situation like this where you're working on a working capital of a few crores, and suddenly you don't have any orders because aerospace industry itself is in such a difficult period. Like Airbus has some 60 or 70 aeroplanes lined up in Toulouse, no takers. They're just piled up. So in such a scenario, obviously it's a highly volatile and highly turbulent market. This is aerospace and defense segment, which is highly cyclical. They feel it is very difficult for them to stay invested. So these are some of the challenges what the industry is facing from MSME segment. So I just wanted to ask these questions to Mr. Bhatia. It is just unfortunate he lost the bandwidth, but I'm sure if Priyank can squeeze at the end of the panel, next panel discussion, if you can squeeze in 4 minutes, if he comes back, I'm sure he will appreciate that gesture. So apart from it, it's a great panel I had this afternoon. I think all industry experts, I think the people benefited listening to our reflections and our insights on this topic. And once again, I thank IFCCI for giving us this opportunity to be on this panel. It is absolutely a pleasure and privilege. And have a great session of panel discussion number 3. Back to you, Priyank.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mantha. As Mr. Mantha mentioned, we will wait till the end of the third panel and see if Mr. Bhatia is able to join us again and give us some of his time to answer these questions. In the interest of time, we move on to the next panel discussion. Thank you, everyone on the second panel to be here for us. So we now move on to the third and the final panel discussion with the leadership across France and India to discuss India and France as investment destinations for aerospace and defense. Before this panel commences, I would like to announce that there'll be a 15-minute question and answer session with the audience and speakers at the end of this panel. We encourage the audience to send in your questions in the chat box, addressed to the organizers only, with your full name and company details, all in one message, clearly mentioning who the question is addressed to, if it is to a speaker in particular. It is now my pleasure to welcome the moderator of this discussion, Mr. Emmanuel de Roquefay, VP and Country Director of Thales India, and the panelists, Ms. Anne-Charlotte Fredunucci, Chairman of the Ametra Group, Mr. Apparao Mallavarapu, CMD of Centum Group, Mr. Ashish Saraf, Head of Region, India and South Asia at Airbus Helicopter, Mr. Eric Fajol, India Director at Business France, and Mr. Vincent Gori, Senior VP, European and International Affairs at GIFAS. I'd now like to pass the baton on to you, Emmanuel, to commence the discussion.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can see me. Is it okay?
All clear. We can hear you as well. Yes.
Okay, super. Well, thank you very much. As the chairman of the IFCCI Aerospace and Defense Committee, it is really my great pleasure to moderate this third and last panel of this seminar. I think we have for this third panel a very impressive panel, and I would like at the beginning that each of you can introduce himself or herself within a 1-minute talk. And then we'll proceed. So maybe starting by Apparao Mallavarapu, would you, Rao, my good friend Rao, can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Rao Mallavarapu. I'm the chairman and founder of Centum Electronics. 26 years in the business, and 80% of our revenues come from outside of the country. And so we have an investment in France, which is something which we are very proud of and we are very happy with. And that's who I am, and that's good afternoon. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Rao. Can I now invite Vincent Gori, who is actually talking out of Paris, to introduce himself. Vincent?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are perfectly audible.
Thank you. And I hope you can understand me. I'm very happy with because for in countries develop international strategy. I've been in India, having growth in India between 2000 and 2007, having started companies in the country. So I'll be happy to speak to you more in details what the French is in terms of investment in the country.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent. Can I invite now Anne-Charlotte Fredenucci to introduce herself? She's also speaking from France.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Emmanuel. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Anne-Charlotte Fredenucci. I am chairwoman of the Metra Group. It's a French company operating mostly in the aerospace and defense industry. We are both an engineering and system integration company with mechanical, electrical, electronics expertise. It's a company that was created by my father over 40 years ago, and I took over this company in 2009 during the last big aeronautics crisis. So the days we are living today, unfortunately, I'm quite familiar with already. And thank you again, Emmanuel, for inviting me to this prestigious event.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlotte. Eric, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Hello, thank you, Emmanuel. Hi, everyone. I am Eric Fajol, Head of Business France in India and Trade Commissioner for the French Embassy. Business France has 4 offices in India, in Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, and Delhi. And we promote French exports, French investment in India, as well as attracting Indian investors in France, and specifically in this strategic sector of aerospace.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Now we'd like to introduce finally Ashish Saraf. Can you talk, please?
Hi, Emmanuel. And hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ashish Saraf. I am the President and Head of Region for Airbus Helicopters. And representing Airbus today and all of Airbus's businesses, Airbus Commercial, Airbus Helicopters, and Airbus Defense and Space. Very happy to be part of this prestigious panel today and the prestigious event organized by IFCCI. Thank you, Payal. Thank you, Sumit. And thank you, Emmanuel, for your wonderful leadership on taking this A&D committee and the A&D chapter to the next level.
Well, thank you, Ashish. Okay, so you realize we have a great panel for this last one. It's clear that the theme of the discussion is about joint investment between India and France. You could see through the introduction that we have people out of France, people out of India, people who have invested in France, people who have invested in India. So it's clear that the cross experiences through this panel will be extremely rich. No doubt that between India and France, there is a strategic partnership which has been created out in 1998. Both countries have demonstrated by concrete action that this bilateral relations, be it on political or on trade or investment, is extremely rich. And this defense cooperation between India and France is also providing a framework for, I would say, strengthening the research and development and the procurement between the two countries. So if we look at one side of the coin, i.e. India as an investment destination for French companies, I will give you some figures. So France is among the top 5 foreign investors in India. We have 1,000 French companies actually across a wide range of sectors in India. Quasi all the members of the CAC 40 are actually existing in India, employing people. Over 300,000 people are employed in India by French companies. And finally, the capital stock of those companies in India is around 20 billion euro, so quite a sizable amount. By 2025 only, the turnover of the ideal turnover, or the target one, in the defense sector only is expected to be around 25 billion euro in the defense and the aerospace sector, with, of course, hundreds of thousands of jobs. So it's a major move, and it's a major part of the French companies investing here in Europe. Recently, there has been a certain number of measures decided by the government of India, which can be even more encouraging French companies to invest in India. And we have in mind, of course, the increase of the FDI from 49% to 74%. I have also the creation of the 2 defense corridors, for example, Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. So that's one side of the coin. If I look at the other side of the coin, France as an investment destination of the Indian companies, it's clear that we have seen also a certain number of Indian companies investing in France. In terms of figures, we have approximately 120 Indian companies having invested in France. That represents today approximately 8,000 people, employees in France, employed by Indian companies. And the capital in terms of assets, it represents approximately 1 billion euro. So, of course, it's sizable, but at the same time, it's a bit imbalanced when we look at the 2 sides of the coin. These examples are very good, of course, but they need to be encouraged. So, as a final introduction, I would like to say that, of course, there is a favorable climate from business and investment has been made possible by the government of both countries. Also, there has been a big push provided by the association like GIFAS, and we will listen to Vincent Gory, Business France, we listen to Eric, other associations like, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, SIDN, which are creating a lot of push in those bilateral investments. Now, from where we are, what can invite to the both sides to reach new levels, and can the future evolution be favorable to a better balance, I would say, a better bilateral balance between Indian companies investing in France versus French companies investing in India. So to develop those questions, of course, the experiences of Rao and Anne-Charlotte would be extremely interesting as a tier 2 companies. As a tier 1 company, of course, Airbus will be extremely important as well, and we listen to GIFAS and Business France. So let's start by my good friend Rao. Rao, would you like to give us some highlights of your experience as an investor into France?
Sure. A very good afternoon to everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and share our perspective and experience in investing in the French aerospace and defense sector. Like I said, a very quick introduction. Centerpoint is 26 years old, and 80% of our revenue come from outside of India. We are in the defense, aerospace, and space sector, which contributes roughly 50% of our revenue. Industrial contributes about 20%, and transportation other 20%, and medical is 10%. We design and manufacture custom products, and we also provide design services and manufacturing services. And over 80% of our products we supply to our customers are single source across the world. In terms of geographical spread, 50% of our revenues come from Europe, 20% from North America, 20% from India, and the remaining is from Israel and China, and Singapore, and other countries. 2,100 people we have. 1,550 are in India, 450 in France, and then 100 in Canada. So coming to today's topic, India and France as investment destination, we are fortunate to have investments in both France. We are an Indian company, and we have obviously been investing consistently in India. But in the year 2016, we decided to make an investment outside of India to further expand our markets. We obviously looked for investment opportunities in the country and finally found an opportunity to acquire a mid-sized French company with a 25 years history and with about 400 design. It was the first time we made an acquisition outside of India, and it was a tremendous learning experience. The core business of the company we acquired was defense and aerospace, with customers such as Thales, Airbus, Stefan, and they are in the business of designing products for the French defense and aerospace company. Obviously, we were nervous if the government of France would allow an Indian company to invest in a French company that designed strategic products for the French military. As expected, there was a strict process that needed to be followed in terms of applying for permissions. Understand, even within the government, they have a strict process in clearances from ministries such as Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Transport or Economic Ministry and such, including no objection from the end customers like Thales and Alstom. They wanted to make sure that the end customer had no objection in the company, a French company being acquired by India. While there is a strict process to follow, what was most impressive was there was no need for any of us to be any official in any of the ministries. We didn't need one official in any ministry. Any questions or clarifications they needed were dealt on email and phone calls, and this is pre-COVID times, by the way. And it was very clear that while being very thorough, they understood the need for speed in arriving at a decision. And that's very impressive. Finally, we received the approval, and I think the whole process took less than 4 months. And that was a surprise. Of course, the final approval that we received came with some compliances we had to follow, but I must say the whole experience was excellent and was a pleasure. Really, the point I'm trying to make is I felt India was looked at as a strategic partner country for France, and our investment was not looked at with any suspicion and was actually welcome. The investment we made is over 4 years ago, almost 5 years now, and as the saying goes, the rest is history. I thought I would set the context and we have to take questions and be a part of the discussion. Thank you again.
Well, thank you very much, Rao. It was very interesting as an experience, and happy to see that 5 years down the road, you are still satisfied by this investment in France.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Vincent Gory, GIFAS, to tell us about how he is experiencing the current life in India, pushing French investors in India after probably the Rafale deal in 2016.
I would say that as I said before, there has been French investment in the country even before the Rafale deal. There were quite a few. And what we have tried to is strategic partnership between India and France taking more and more substance. We have decided to have a large trade mission in 2019 in India. We worked on 60 companies. And we had a very study. On that occasion, we signed with an agreement with SIDM. We had numerous interactions during this visit. And prior to the visit, we had a lot of sessions with the support of the Indian Embassy in Paris. On explaining how to invest in the country, what were the main attractiveness in the main policy features. And so since then, we have seen a big increase of investment to the city. I'm talking about there are 66 French companies present in India. And starting more than industrial activity, which is quite impressive over the short span of time. That we decided to increase this first it's quite to facilitate this. We do this on our own and also in partnership with SIDM. And we started with the GFAS committee. We set up this GFAS office in Delhi. And we have committees right now, one in Delhi and one in Bangalore. So we try to facilitate, the way, exchange the experience between our members and CEO and maybe let's stop at that point. If you want to continue, we can situation or we can if you have questions of the time, maybe I can detail. So let us know where the companies are in the country. So.
Well, thank you very much, Vincent, for this interesting experience. Of course, those 15 industrial projects were certainly extremely rich, and at least one of them is the one of Anne-Charlotte Fredenucci from the Ametra Group. Anne-Charlotte, would you mind telling us about your experience in investing in India?
Sure, thank you, Emmanuel. Indeed, the Ametra experience in India started when we joined the GFAS trip in, I think it was in May 2018. And this was the first time when we met Newcon Aerospace, and specifically Udit and Hemant Chalan, who are the owners of Newcon Aerospace. So I'm here to share the experience of a joint venture between Ametra Group, a French company, and Newcon Aerospace, an Indian company. I've already told you a few words about Ametra. Regarding Newcon Aerospace, let me tell you that Newcon provides motion control systems, mostly to the aeronautics and defense industry in India and to foreign customers as well. So this JV venture started in May 2018. In June 2019, Newcon Ametra Electronics Systems, that's the name of our joint venture, delivered a first batch of products to Thales in India. So that had been only 13 months between the day we met and the first delivery. And in June 2019, our customer was kind enough to tell us that he was very satisfied with the first batch. So that was the first time when we knew that for sure that this joint venture was going to be a big success. But let me tell you first why I think we've been successful so far with this joint venture. What are the key success factors? First, even before we met, Newcon and Ametra had a lot in common. We both had strong positions on our home country defense markets, defense and aerospace markets. We were both mid-sized companies, approximately 700 people for Ametra, mostly in France and Tunisia, approximately 500 people for Newcon Aerospace in India. We both have engineering and manufacturing activities. We share a common business culture. We're family-owned. We're very client-minded, technical companies. We've been around for over 40 years. We have an agile decision process that helped us go very fast. I remember we had a chat, Emmanuel and I, a few months back when Emmanuel told me, you will never be able to deliver your first products in a year between the day you meet and the day you deliver the products. And we actually did it. So obviously, this agile decision process did help. What we had in common as well was definitely a willingness to join forces. Both the Jalan family and I saw this joint venture as a long-run win-win partnership. And we all had an international background, which also helped, I believe, in the decision-making process. So A, we had a lot in common when we met. B, in the partnership, we quickly agreed to a lot of things together. First, we listened very carefully to what our customers wanted and needed, and that helped us design the right answer. We understood that to serve the French defense and aeronautics customers that were the primary focus of this joint venture, to serve these customers in France, we needed something of a front office in France and the back office in India, even if these terms are very limited to talk about what we're building. But still, we needed French people in France and Indian people in India to understand both cultures and deliver the best of each culture locally. So talking to this about the discussions we had with our customers, let me take this opportunity to extend a very warm thank you to Emmanuel here, but also to Deepak Talwar, to Rob Carmona, who were very helpful in helping us design what this joint venture should be. We also met great people at MBDA. I've seen Alain Biard's name among the people who joined this conference, at Dassault Aviation, at Liber Aerospace, at Safran. I believe it's very important to listen to your customers before knowing exactly what you should go for as a joint venture. So we both agreed, Newcon and Ametra, that listening to our customers was very important. We also agreed on the perimeter of the partnership with no potential areas of tension, because we are not competitors, but in our core areas of expertise, but we supplement each other. We also agreed that we should bring resources, each mother company should bring resources to the joint venture to start fast and to keep costs low, but again, to be agile and be able to grow fast. We also agreed on a step-by-step approach. So the JV team was trained and is going to be trained. We started with simple harnesses products, but the idea is to go into integrating much more complex products, such as, in the long run, flight control systems for Dassault Aviation, and even perhaps in the long run, engineering services as well out of India. So A, we had a lot in common. B, we agreed very fast on many things, but that's nothing if you don't deliver your promises to the customer. So I believe C, this joint venture has been a success so far, because at the end of the day, we were able to deliver on time and on quality the first batches of products that the customers entrusted us with. So we put a lot of innovation, competitiveness, operational excellence into this joint venture. And okay, we're still young, but I'm sure that the future ahead of us is even more promising than the results behind us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anne-Charlotte, for this enlightful experience. Thank you for your nice words, by the way. Yes, you succeeded 1 year after to deliver, and that was great. So agility, and I would say a good joint culture were certainly some elements of this success. And now I would like to invite Eric Fajol, Business France, to tell us how he's doing to invite more and more investment from India to France.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I will maybe just start by what the French government has done since June, after the lockdown in France, with an emergency plan for different industry, and two keys industry of France, who are the automotive industry and the aerospace industry, with a special recovery plan. This was very useful, and we know that some Indian investors who are already operating in France have benefited from that plan since June, especially for the employment benefits that was taken care by the government by special funds. And since then, in September, the Prime Minister announced a massive recovery plan for the whole economy. It's 100 billion euro that the government will inject in the economy for the next 2 years, 2021 and 2022, for three. I mean, the focus is on three topics: is to get a green transition, to get a more ecological transition, and to become the first European nation to be carbon neutral. And this is very important. It can give you some ideas where you can invest in France according to that willingness of being the first in Europe for green transition. The second point of this massive plan is to increase our competitiveness in France by reducing production of taxes in the companies and in the industry in France, but also, and this is maybe important for our partners in India, to reduce our dependency from, especially from China, in critical inputs for the industry in many sectors. And this is all about relocalization of some products, but also to find other suppliers around the world and to change the supply chain in key sectors. And the last of that competitiveness is, of course, to invest more in innovation and technology, and the government is putting more and more money for R&D as well. The third pillar of that strategy is also to maintain a social and a regional cohesion in France. Social cohesion, I said, is to support the youth, to support the employees, to avoid unemployment, to save companies as well, and to invest in infrastructure. So, as I said, the aeronautic and aerospace sector was provided within the 100 billion. They have received like 15 billion to support, first of all, the airlines, and to support the demand of the replacement of fleets for greener aircraft. And greener aircraft is a key word and a key strategy of what we want to do and what the government wants to do, with a very, very good support scheme for exports and for also R&D. The second point was to support the supply side, all the industry. The aeronautic, as you know, is very important in France, and it's a key industry in France and in Europe. To consolidate that sector and to boost investment to provide this competitiveness of the sector. So the government had created an aerospace investment fund, and that fund is supporting the diversification and modernization for that ecological transformation. So any cooperation with French company on that part of the competitiveness and the greener economy will be very interesting to promote. The third point was also to work on the aircraft of tomorrow and to support the R&D, as I said. So we have seen that even through GIFAS, the government had a kind of charter to structure better the relation between the OEMs and the subcontractors. And we know that some industry around the table today, but also part of IFCCI have benefited and will benefit, and they have strategy to invest more in France, or also to put money or to acquire some subcontractors and some small and medium-sized industry. And I mean, I think Centum with Rao, for me, is the best example of what an Indian company can do in France, is to have this opportunity to buy a French company, to put money in a French company with a very interesting technology, but in a tricky financial condition, and to develop the business with this company in France, to keep and employ people in France, but also to develop the business in India and for also third markets. So I think we can have more of those examples. And I know that Mahindra Aerospace, Dualip, IQS, Centum, as I said, Motherson, we heard just before. I mean, they are willing also, and they have this focus about France. And I think it's a special time also because of Brexit to see France as a key point for investing in our country as a key player on the European continent. So, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities now, and the problem of this pandemic, we are trying to turn it as a new challenge and new opportunities for business, especially in the aeronautic sector. We have, with our team in India, we have demand of a French company who wants to make some deals with Indian company, not only to export, but also for investment. And there is also a special program from the government to help those French SMEs to do this kind of deals and to finance those deals as well. So that's, I don't think many other countries in Europe who have put so much money into this sector to recover from the crisis.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. Clearly, the money that France is putting in order to recover this industry and to rebound so that you can navigate through the crisis and be stronger after is extremely important. Absolutely. Ashish, as a senior rep of Airbus, would you mind talking about your own experience as someone who is having this great experience as part of a French but also a global company who has invested heavily in India?
Yeah, thanks, Emmanuel. And what I'll do is I'll just touch upon both the aspects where Airbus has actually done a lot in terms of having invested in India, but also on the other side, what we continue to do to promote from India investments into France. So, to start with, obviously, the story goes like this, right? So we have started about 2004, 2002 to 2004-ish, when we were establishing just our presence in India. And if we look at us about 15 years later, one of the key things we notice is India not only has the status of a country, but we call India as a key country region. Now, what that means as a key country region is the opportunity for us to have not only market access, but also opportunity to tap into a gold mine of talent. And at the end of, let's say, pre-COVID last year, we, in the last 15 years, grew to having over 50 suppliers in country, to have a spend of about 600 million euros per year sourced from India and India-based suppliers, over 1,000 employees working for us, not just us, but about 6,000 employees working for Airbus programs at various suppliers that we have, over 50 plus suppliers that make all the way from safety critical components like flap track beams to safety evacuation chutes to super specialty machine parts to electronics components, avionics, engineering services, flight dynamics, flight physics, and the list goes on and on. So fundamentally, not only that, but also a couple of JVs that are already being in the works. This coupled with a clear initiative that we see this country having not only our presence in terms of us and the supply chain, but also making it a regional hub for airline related operations, MRO training, both in the commercial and rotary wing, training, certification, as well as repair and overall activities for this region. We see India as a gold mine of talent and gold mine of resources in terms of supply chain to have tremendous opportunities that are bring in, and we are at the forefront of getting into tapping all of those for the benefit of Airbus. Now, this is just from the standpoint of what we have done, and then the future holds is how we are proposing to actually move the entire line of helicopters, not only India for India, but India for the world. And beyond that, medium lift aircraft for military use for the C295 from partnerships with an Indian partner. So this is what the future holds. Not only we are stopping for just the supply chain, but also bringing in a complete line of aircraft and aircraft services to be produced for the globe and to be serviced for the region. Now, as far as taking India to France is concerned, how we approach this is in a very innovative manner. We have come to the realization that beyond the Silicon Valley, India is probably one of the major hubs of startups, with just about 3,500 startups in the city of Bangalore itself, in the Silicon Valley of India. So we have a program called Airbus Biz Labs, where we bring in about 6 to 8 startups every year and provide them an opportunity to leverage their solutions to be deployed to us globally. And a key example is a company on supply chain analytics called Navy Analytics that have actually deployed their solution. It started in a small lab with a prototyping prove out activity in Bangalore. And now this solution is deployed in France with this company deploying many employees in France, in Hamburg, in Toulouse, and centers across France to actually do the supply chain analytics in our plants. Subsequently, we also encourage a lot of our suppliers to actually go and set up operations in France, including encouraging them for making or considering setup of operations and acquisitions if the market permits into France. And this has brought in a lot of Indian companies very interested in making investments in France. And finally, the innovation for engineering and flight physics happening directly from India to be actually propagated into our engineering centers in Toulouse and Hamburg. They have the likes of the helionics, which is the flight control system of a helicopter, or the flight physics that is an algorithm that goes on behind the flight itself, being actually developed and then deployed by many people from India going into France. There is also an opportunity we take into export talent from India to actually give them a cross-cultural orientation and appreciation and work experience between India and France. We have a formal program associated with this. So these are kind of the opportunities that we have in any time between exchanging both Airbus for India and India for Airbus.
Thank you very much, Ashish. Obviously, your talk was extremely covered a lot of elements. Your experience with respect to the startups that you encourage to go to France is certainly quite unique. So it's certainly a good way for the future. But This leads me to deal with a very key element in those kind of investments is dealing with IP, intellectual proprietary, which is obviously extremely keen to the Indian government in order when you talk about investment into India. I would like maybe how to say a few words about how did you deal with IP if you have a great experience about it.
IP is obviously one of the most important subjects, and like I said, we design and manufacture products both. We design in France and also in India. I guess IP is really an issue of the business model that we have. We have two typically. One is where we design the product for the customer actually pays for the design, and so obviously the IP belongs to the customer. So it's pretty straightforward. Then we have situations where we fund the complete product development, the design, and so on. And even there, it's not much of an issue because the IP belongs to us. It's the hybrid versions where sometimes we have part of the cost is absorbed by us and part of the cost is paid by the customer. And so this is where we have different business models and how do we share, and if we use the IP elsewhere for any other customer, obviously we have to get permissions, vice versa. But because of the design services business that we have, I think the IP issues are fairly clear. It's the product development where we also manufacture the product, and especially when we design products based on the market. It's not built to spec, it's not built to print, it's built to market, and that's where the trouble, not trouble really, as much as clarity of understanding between the customer and us is required. And we've not really had any issues of any serious nature. So. But I think what's more important is one needs to be clear upfront and make sure that there is a clear understanding between both the parties under what conditions the IP can be used independent of the other party. So that's how we handle that IP issue.
Thank you, Rao. Very interesting. Conscious of time, I think I will let the floor back to the organizers of this seminar. I would like to really thank Vincent, Eric, and Charlotte, Rao, and Ashish for their experience, for the richness of the experience. I think it was quite interesting to cross-bond all those bilateral experiences. So thank you very much. I hope our auditors appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Emmanuel. Thank you, all the speakers. I request everyone to turn on their videos for a quick picture, and post that we can take the questions as you find suitable to answer. Can we have everyone's videos on, please? Toby, I see that you're on your way somewhere. All right, so I'm taking a few pictures here. Great, okay. So I'm just going to quickly ask a few questions that have come across. This is one from Ms. Neelam Matthews. She's an aerospace journalist. Whoever sees it fit to answer, please go ahead. Although she has addressed this specifically to Airbus, are you looking at providing MRO facilities for the military via a third-party provider in India? If so, could you please share any details?
Well, we are looking for both avenues. There is a larger tie-up and also a potential for establishing a services center, and we have at least gotten started on some of it by establishing our training facilities in Udyog Vihar in Gurgaon. But I'll say that there are two aspects to it. For helicopters, we are looking to actually have third-party tie-ups, and we will potentially like to have one in the north and one in the center, south, or east, because helicopters can't fly all the way from the south to the north to get maintained. So we want to have two. On the commercial side, there is a discussion going on around MRO, several possibilities, including a third-party tie-up and our own. So options are open at this time, and certainly when things firm up, you will be hearing from us.
Thank you, Ashish. We have an open question from Ms. Nandini. Whoever feels fit to answer. The GST for MRO has been reduced from 18% to 5% this March. Will it help boost the MRO ecosystem in India, or does India still need to work on the ease of doing business?
It will absolutely help. If I can start. I think a lot of us, and I don't know if Pierre de Kelly is on the call or not, but a lot of us on this panel and the previous panels and in this call have vouched for it, and the Indian government has been extremely helpful, considerate to making this 18 to 5%. This is a very welcome move, and it is already helping, and it's obviously going to make a tremendous difference for years to come, specifically towards our and the government's goal of making this a regional MRO hub. I mean, the point was, let us make India a MRO hub for all the neighborhood, wherein we can kind of be the service center for South Asia, and I think it's a big step.
Thank you, Ashish. Would anyone else like to contribute? Pierre, I see that you're speaking.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with what Ashish is saying. I mean, we have worked a lot to get to that point, and really, I think we can say there was something before March 14th, 2020, and the next part after March 2020 will be different thanks to that move. And actually, I think all the Indian MRO industry is really keen now on working and getting to that point where they will be able to handle the MRO needed for India, but also out of this get export done here in India for the market, I mean for the neighboring countries. So definitely this is a great help. Definitely.
Thank you, Pierre. I'll leave 5 seconds if anyone else wants to join in as well. Okay, so I'll move to the next question. Prior to COVID, there was a push. This is by Ms. Gunjan Shah. Prior to COVID, there was a push to move manufacturing to countries such as India, China, Vietnam, etc. However, COVID has shown both dangers of outsourcing critical components as well as the need to maintain and create jobs locally. How do you feel that this will now play out?
Oh, I can start if you're okay with it.
Please go ahead, Ashish.
Okay. See, reinsourcing is not a very easy task, and reinsourcing takes plenty of time and plenty of resources. I do not really believe that there will be a reverse wave because moving supply chains that are established takes time. It also will depend on the acceleration of the recovery, and if all of us and the projections potentially look at a 2022 recovery, there is not enough time to re-insource and ramp up. So what I see is maybe potentially new projects that might get impacted in terms of outsourcing, but the current ones, the ramp up, etc. It's going to be very difficult to re-insource over a period of time, from now till the ramp up starts. Whereas supply chains have already adjusted to the new volumes and are already bracing for the ramp up, which probably is another year from now, etc. That might be a different story for new programs and new projects. Now, that said, it also depends on the capability to sustain and invest from the supply chains in India and China. And as far as we see, they have shown great deal of resilience. And Mr. Rao, I really invite you to comment on this, because Mr. Rao or if Toby is here, they have seen a great deal of resilience to actually adjust to the business and cooperate with the OEMs and their customers. And this will only help them build a longer term relationship and a partnership with their customers in Europe for worldwide supply.
I don't know if Toby is here, but my take is, I'm with you on this, Ashish. It's not easy to not just insource, it's not just easy to even move the supply chains to any other part of the world so easily. I think there are two angles to it. One is the cost of doing it one time, and the second is the recurring cost. Clearly, there is a cost arbitrage between best cost countries and let's say a Western country. So it's not easy for people to say, well, we're going to take it back. That's not going to happen. That's number one. Number two, and also, as you said, I think because of COVID and price pressures are constant, there's a requirement to reduce prices constantly. So it's kind of very hard to say, well, I'm going to take it back to a location where it's going to cost more to manufacture, unless there's something very unique that one is able to do a very innovative way of doing it. So I don't see that happening very easily. But what I do see happening is, I think because of COVID, more than anything else, I think there is this concern about being over dependent on a particular region. And I think it's going to be dual sourcing, because like 80% of our business is single sourced, right? So we always, the responsibility of being a single sourced company is very high, because if we stop, the customer stops. So, but I think what's really happened with COVID, I think this is what we see. The question is, customers are coming back and saying, guys, where is your second manufacturing location? What's your backup? What's your business continuity plan? I think these are the things that we need to address, whether it's and starting a new plant in another part of the world or another part of the country is not that easy. So these are the questions that are being raised. I don't think we have any solutions, but we definitely need to find solutions for this kind of the pandemic, which has really opened up some of these issues, which, I mean, we always had a business continuity plan, but it was not as severe as something like this. So that's my take. It's not going to be that easy, and we have to find newer ways of ensuring security of supply to the customers. That's my take.
One thing I want to add in a different perspective, obviously, they're all manufacturing giants, share the perspective. I think one aspect is we see some silver lining with all the geopolitical tensions building between US and China. We're seeing some kind of a small swing where some of the companies, especially from US, wanted to shift their operations, either manufacturing or even for that matter, engineering from China to India. Whether how much really that swing will translate into actual business, we need to wait and see. But that's another opportunity by which I think the aerospace industry, especially in the manufacturing, could revive faster. A different part altogether.
Yeah, this is Toby here. I echo the thoughts of Ashish and Manta and Appa. You know, globalization's extremely difficult to unwind, but of course, COVID is going to make people rethink risk profiles and what they're doing. But I must say that India and the Indian supply chain, especially based in southern India, have actually conducted themselves extraordinarily well. Both the states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu immediately announced exemptions for aeronautics, aerospace, and defense. And so from the first, we didn't even have a lockdown. We essentially were exempted. And then within our supply chains, for example, we built our own COVID testing lab and till date have conducted over 15,000 RT-PCR tests. This is inside our facilities to protect the supply chain, workers, everybody. We test everybody 2 weeks. These are the kind of things that the ecosystem in India is doing. The government, the suppliers, the sub-suppliers, and I think it's been really appreciated by our customers. And in fact, we've got additional business during this period. So I just like to say that it's how you react in these bad times. And I know that the industry, whatever, because Appa's factories is down the road, we all have been very fortunate to be able to operate despite these normally tough times. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. I think we can take maybe 2 more questions in the interest of time with quick answers. I'll quickly announce the first question. It's by Pradyumna Naresh, and it's a very generic question. How do you rate the potential of improvement in Bangalore manufacturing and IT market under defense and aerospace in 2021 on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best in India?
Oof. That's a complicated question.
I think they just want a rating.
Rated anything between 8 to 10.
Yes. We have joint ventures as well in Bangalore, and we're dealing with a lot of suppliers, mainly in Bangalore. And I would say like Ashish, between 8 to 10, yes.
Okay, perfect. And the last question I would say by Mr. Mani Srinivasan is, what are the problems faced by you as a foreign investor in the Indian legal system, especially with corporate laws?
I would say if you want to remain for long in India, do not dream to train someone in court.
Yeah, better to stay away.
I think
on a serious note, right? The environment is absolutely changing, becoming more business friendly.
Yeah.
You can see the labor laws being made friendlier if you pay close attention to the modification of the labor laws that have been done just this year. It's been made more business friendly. In the pandemic, government has reached out to actually relax some of the compensations that need to be made in the EPFO, etc., and also have provided incentives to hire skills by way of providing contribution to the EPFOs for new employees. So you can see that change coming. The relaxation in FDI norms is another one. lot of states actually putting a single window clearance is one huge welcome step. But that said, we have plenty of leeway to improve further in ease of doing business, which is happening. You can clearly just see that the intent is there, and obviously these things are being put in action as months and years go by. So I see no reason why the next few years would be more optimistic than the past few years.
Thank you, Ashish. And I think we'll close the Q&A session on that positive note. As we come to the end of today's program, I'd like to welcome Mr. Johan Samuel, Regional Director for South, and to share the official closing remarks.
Thank you, Priyank. Good evening once again to everyone. It was a really afternoon, I would say, and for the time, for the and all participants. And thank you as well to our partner today, so SID Business France and the French Embassy in India, as well as Airbus, Airports Limited, India. Special thank you as well to the constant support and guidance of our Defense and Aerospace Committee in Bengal. And helping us in this yeah. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Johan.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a good evening ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stop it.